Sticks and bricks might break our bones, but words will most certainly kill us. Hortense Spillers. I want to tell you about my infatuation with the word reconciliation and how I came to understand that relationship was toxic. Reconciliation sounds like a lovely word, but it can also be a sneaky one, hiding many ugly things inside it. Things like money and control and power and whiteness. I wish I could offer you a simple working definition for the word reconciliation, but that is precisely the problem. In my doctoral research, I read over 70 popular Christian publications on reconciliation, and I could never find that word consistently defined. For some theologians, it means forgiveness. For others, it means friendship across barriers. For others, it means the gospel itself. What I'm saying is the singular word reconciliation has been made to do an extraordinary amount of work in the imaginations of particularly white Christians. This is the first problem of reconciliation. It is too malleable in a way, which means it is easily manipulated to fit the whim of whoever wields it. And the second problem of reconciliation language is that in this infinite malleability at the whim of the Christian speaker or writer, it closes off the possibilities of other language. So words like repentance, repair, reparations, justice, equity are eclipsed by this singular word, reconciliation. Now, I did not always question this word and how it works when white people like me use it. I'm a minister who loved the word reconciliation and its performance of racial and political unity for many years. My meet cute with this word happened in Belfast, Northern Ireland, when I was a 22-year-old mission volunteer. And in Belfast, reconciliation language was as ever present as the rain. It watered political, theological, and social conversations. I knew I would be a minister. I had known this since I was a small child. But in Belfast, that ministry was given a shape, and that shape was reconciliation. I helped lead a year-long cross-community project of Protestant and Catholic kids from Belfast, culminating in a 3-week trip to South Africa to learn the secrets of true reconciliation. And after my year in Belfast, I began my seminary training. And I arrived fired up with a passion for reconciliation, which meant that my transnational stories of it were frequently peppered into conversations, whether it was even needed or not. I connected deeply with those theologies that centered reconciliation language. And when I graduated, my first call as a minister was a given. I was going back to Belfast. So I went back for 2 more years to the same Presbyterian church that I had worked in before, but I was in a new stage of life. I was newly ordained, and my views of the world and my theology had shifted significantly. I questioned many power dynamics of patriarchy and heteronormativity, and yet reconciliation continued to be my comfort and my calling. I never questioned the beauty of that word. Later, as a solo pastor in rural North Carolina, the pattern continued. I preached on reconciliation often. I attended popular clergy workshops on reconciliation, and I was always searching for those secrets of true reconciliation. And so I started a THD program intent on deepening my understanding of this language and on building a scaffolding of theologies around it. I wanted to fire the church up for reconciliation, and it did not go as I'd planned. In my first meeting on campus before beginning the program, a female Black faculty member asked me a simple but shattering question. Do you know what that word does when it comes out of your mouth? I did not know. It had simply never occurred to me that my love for reconciliation language might have something to do with my whiteness. And I was frankly shocked that my love of this beautiful word could be in any way connected to my white privilege and worldview. Some of you may be shocked by this too. Like many white feminist theologians before me, I was used to speaking out against many things: economic injustice and patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, and racism. But I never considered that something like reconciliation, that sounded so beautiful, that was so woven into my theology and my identity, might be causing other people harm. What harm could the word reconciliation be doing, particularly to Black life? And how is that word actually concealing ongoing histories of harm? How does language protect power relationships that grieve God and harm the children of God? And how has the word reconciliation done this? I begin to explore these questions here. Sticks and bricks might break our bones, but words will most certainly kill us. The word reconciliation is literally reconciliation. So to speak of reconciliation in the context of race, which is what I'm doing here, is to say there was a time of conciliation or racial peace in this country. It implies a return to a time when race was not an issue or when harmony was already achieved. Reconciliation has been used to support this idea, though it often doesn't really mean a return to a time of actual racial harmony, as much as it means a return to a time when white people didn't have to talk so much about race. The word reconciliation has also been used to support the idea that God mandates forgiveness at all cost. And this takes the form of theologies that pressure victims to forgive their abusers. Some of you may have received this sort of pressure by church leaders, where the forgiving seems to matter much more than the harm done. And yet there is another way the word reconciliation has been used. Beyond its use in discussions of theology and racial peace, reconciliation is used in accounting practices. And this particular usage is deeply connected both to theology and to matters of race. Reconciliation accounting is fundamentally a method for managing difference with order. Let that sentence sink in. This process was institutionalized by a wealthy Franciscan priest in 1494 who has been called the father of modern accounting. His name is Luca Pacioli. And the name of that process, now called reconciliation, was double entry bookkeeping. Double entry means to keep double records of books and accounts and to manipulate those records into coherence until there was no difference between them, because difference was a sign of criminality. Let that sentence sink in. A first edition of Luca Pacioli's treatise on bookkeeping sold in a Christie's auction in 2019 for over $1.2 million. And the advertisement for this treatise claimed, quote, that Pacioli's work is a major advance in reconciling business with ethics, providing a clear guide to virtuous accounting and pursuit of profit. I want to unpack some of these words. Pacioli reconciled business with ethics. This is because merchants were generally not seen as respectable in his day, and it's also because the Catholic Church had a ban on usury, on the interest made on loans, and at least officially they frowned on the idea of profit. And Pacioli reconciled this conflict through one overriding idea and theology: order. God made the cosmos in perfect mathematical proportion, and as one Pacioli scholar writes, for him was to worship God by partaking in this divine order. Which means that when Pacioli advocated for keeping double records of books and reconciling them into a zero-sum difference through neat lines and grids and numbers, he was reinscribing the order of God upon the ledger page. And if you think I'm theologizing too much here, y'all, Pacioli actually said in his treatise that every entry had to be made in the sweet name of Jesus, and that every error had to be atoned for by that symbol from which the infernal enemies flee, the sign of the cross. Pacioli made what was a long-established Muslim mathematical practice explicitly Christian, and he settled the question of whether God approved of prophets once and for all. If the lines were sharp enough and the order was perfect like God, no prophet could be called into question. He even went so far as to call prophet the will and blessing of God for all who really are good Christians. He quoted Paul in his accounting treatise, among other Christian scriptures. So when this Christie's listing claims that Pacioli provided a clear guide to virtuous accounting, this is true. That guidance was found in order. Difference was a sign of criminality, to be reconciled into coherence. Pacioli even says it's perfectly fine to introduce more cash into a system or to inflate the value of goods to reach that reconciliation. So this means that Pacioli's reconciliation was always artificially constructed by a wealthy priest of European descent. Pacioli's reconciliation, whatever his claims, were far from virtuous. Did you catch when that treatise was published? 1494. 2 years after Columbus's conquest of so-called unordered lands and bodies. Pacioli's reconciliation process, where order reigns and profit is virtuous, said that no person can be entered into the ledger without their consent. This would have meant as a debtor or a creditor. He said consent was required. And then he also said that every item of chattel must be entered into his books to guard against fraud. Do you see where I'm going? This Christian reconciliation process was not just used for shop goods and services. It was used during chattel slavery to list every item of chattel and turn human beings into objects of property to be bought and traded and cashed in on. Because of how Pacioli's process was set up, the second a captive African human was put in the ledger without their consent, they became a non-person. What Stephanie Smallwood has called creating marks where human beings once stood. Catherine McKittrick names this, quote, the list, the breathless numbers, the absolutely economic, the mathematics of the living, the birthplace of Blackness. Pacioli's reconciliation process, used by slaveholders to account for their human property, called profit the will and blessing of God, even profit upon captive flesh. Black flesh was reconciled into non-existence, even as there was always black life that exceeded this reconciliation, life that could never be fully contained on the page. Let me be clear. The application of Pacioli's reconciliation process onto chattel slavery ledgers was not an aberration of it or a distortion of it. Pacioli's process was working exactly as it had been designed to do. Sticks and bricks might break our bones, but words will most certainly kill us. Even though Pacioli did not use the word reconciliation, it only became popular language 20 years after his treatise was published. This is what his method does. And this is what his method has come to be called. And this reconciliation, this exact same process, is still the legal process used in every country in the world. But that word and that process is haunted by what Ian Bauckham names the specter of slavery. Reconciliation is haunted by the Christian process that ordered black flesh into property and called that ordering Christian virtue. Now, it may be argued that the word reconciliation cannot be held accountable for such a history. The word that was translated as reconciliation was, after all, in the letters of Paul long before Pacioli arrived on the scene, though the word certainly became more popular in theological discourse after Pacioli. The word reconciliation has surely done some good in that long history, but what I am arguing here is that words cannot be divorced from the relationships they create. And the word reconciliation has, as I see in Luca Pacioli, created and theologized and funded a death-dealing relationship between white Christian property holders and black life. Whether Paul would have condoned such a relationship is really not the point. The point is that the word reconciliation, especially when used in conversations about race, has worked a particular harm, and it is haunted by that harm. This is the harm of white Christian slaveholders accounting for black people as non-people. This is the harm of placing profit and order above all else and calling it God's will. This is the harm of some lives not mattering. And this is the harm of language that masks the reality that black life is still seen as expendable. White security, profit, and theology matter more than black bodies. Words do something. Words like reconciliation create ideas of what is true, and they close off other ideas. Reconciliation language creates violent human relationships. It hides other ways of naming and knowing race relations in the United States, and it finds legitimacy for this disappearing act in the theological claims that it is the gospel itself. To question this word is to question the gospel. Reconciliation is theologically framed as salvation. So, if reconciliation is named the work of Jesus, Even when that work is at best vaguely defined, how can that word and its work ever be called into question? But this is true. The word reconciliation, when used by white Christians, has worked a particular harm upon Black people. Pacioli shows this. That word continues to work harm when Black life is rendered expendable. How can there actually be racial healing when the terms of the discourse are tainted with the stain of chattel slavery? I am not proposing alternative language today, and I am not reclaiming the word reconciliation. I am instead asking white Christians like me to sit with this word many of us love and to learn the history of harm woven into it. Willie Jennings has offered one of the best descriptions of whiteness I have read. He argues in the Christian Century that, quote, to be shaped inside of whiteness in the West is to be shaped inside a sense of comfort and safety. Things revolve around you, and it's not just an idea, it's a reality of a sense of comfort, a sense of what's normal and what's safe. And these realities are not just in the head, they are registered, especially in the way communities are shaped in whiteness. What Jennings is saying is that whiteness means we white people have placed our comfort, safety, and prosperity in the center of the world. In the context of reconciliation language, this looks like very well-funded public initiatives where reconciliation gets performed for us. There are many words by theologians and church leaders, and very little actual substantial change or attention to bodies. Such performances legitimate reconciliation theologies while making white folks think that change is happening, even if it isn't. If it happens on the stage or on the pulpit with the important person talking about it, it doesn't have to happen in our lives, in our communities, in our hearts. This also looks like the promotion of news stories after assaults on Black life, where an exemplary, usually Christian, Black person is seen forgiving or hugging a white perpetrator. This looks like responding to Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter. That all reveals a reconciliation theology of difference as threatening and an uncritical trust in order at any cost. White money, white feelings, and white lives are put at the center of our theologies, our news, our power structures. So I ask some of you the question I had to first ask myself. Is it possible that white people's love for reconciliation language might have something to do with our whiteness? It was true for me, as painful as that is to admit. Like Jennings says, we are not just talking about ideas, like the idea of a good use of reconciliation language or a bad use of that word. We are talking about reality, about the relationships that word has created between white people and Black people in this country, relationships haunted by chattel slavery, by accounting for Black people as non-people in the name of Jesus. If reconciliation language has been a comfort to white people, what is the cost of that comfort? Who has paid it? Who is still paying for it? Have we accounted for that? I believe that when we do this honest accounting of reconciliation language, space is created for something else. Space for words that do not wound. Space for relationships beyond commodification and white comfort. Space for life, unreconciled from power and whiteness.